Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Dayspring Discussions. I'm your host Sean McGahee, and this is a show where we talk about movies, TV, sci-fi, fantasy, comic books. If you geek out about it, we're going to talk about it. You can listen to Dayspring Discussions on iTunes, YouTube, Podomatic, Patreon, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever guys. While you're there, go and rate, review, subscribe. Then head on over to the Facebook group and Twitter account and join in the discussion. Well, hello everyone. It is Tuesday here in Austin, Texas. It's another hot one, of course. It's summertime. It's going to be hot. I'm having a pretty good day so far. Got up this morning. I went to take my car in for a little bit of work. Came back, gave my lawn the full treatment, which is I mowed, I trimmed, I took out some weeds, I laid down some ant killer, got the full pedicure on the lawn today. And now that I've accomplished something, I'm just going to sit back, relax, maybe watch some TV. I started that Cursed show on Netflix, the King Arthur one, that's based off the Frank Miller comic book. I'm about, over halfway through the first episode. To be honest, I don't love it. It's one of those things where I'm a big fan of the King Arthur legend, but shows like that, it can be very difficult to pull off. And I know I'm not even through the first episode, but as of right now, I'm not interested in it. Now, try to give a show about 3 episodes. If I can't get into a show after 3 episodes, I drop it. Honestly, the way I'm going, I may not make it to episode 2, but I'm at least finish the first episode. If you guys are enjoying Cursed, fire back, let me know if it gets better, and I'll see if I can get through it. Alright guys, so on today's show, I'm doing something I wanted to do last week, but didn't have a chance to do. I had a crazy week last week. Sunday was my birthday, so I had birthday shenanigans that I partaked in. Monday, I took my daughter to Six Flags, which we had a great time. I worked a couple of days, and then Friday through Sunday this past weekend, my buddy Josh, who's former co-host of this show with me, he got married, and I was in the wedding. Beautiful wedding, beautiful venue, beautiful bride. It was a great time by all. I'm so happy to be there. Josh, of course, if you're listening, hope you're enjoying your vacation. And my God, I can't believe you're actually listening to this for once. But that is why I am doing this today rather than last week, because last week was the official 20th anniversary of the original X-Men film, directed by Bryan Singer, starring Patrick Stewart, Hugh Jackman, Ian McKellen, Halle Berry, James Marsden, the whole group of them. And I want to talk about this movie because to me, it has a very significant point or a very significant pedestal in my eyes for my life. First off, it's X-Men. I always tell people, if there's any, subjects that you want me to start talking about and never shut up about, it's going to be Star Wars, Superman, and X-Men. I will talk about those 3 things all day long. I will not shut up about it. So I consider myself a pretty big X-Men fan. This show is named after an X-Men reference for those who get it. So, I love the X-Men is really what it comes down to. So there's that. But also the film The X-Men has a significant role in comic book industry and also film industry where sure you had films before that were hits of the comic book and superhero genre. Of course, there was the original Richard Donner's Superman movie with Christopher Reeves. Then, of course, you have the Tim Burton Batman films starring Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. Those series went on to do about 4 other films each. But by the end of them, those film series were kind of a joke. And those first 2, Superman 1, Superman 2, Batman Returns, I think are still very good films that really take the source material seriously. And that's why they're such good films. But before X-Men, you didn't have a lot of other films or even live-action TV series that took the comic book genre or comic book material very seriously and really just came off as silly. I mean, there's some Spider-Man 70s show, I believe. There's a Captain America show. Of course, there's the famous Incredible Hulk series with Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby that also had some TV movies to go along with it, which, for the day weren't that bad. But really, up until the point of, Blade and X-Men, I'll kind of mention Blade in there too, the Hollywood industry really didn't see the point of taking these comic book characters and seeing how they had any value except for fluff. But what the people at Fox did with X-Men and what Bryan Singer did was take the basis of these characters that were ridiculed and persecuted because they were different, and looked at the very core keys of it all, much like you can look at Superman as just an immigrant story, or you can look at Iron Man as a warmonger story or anything like that. If you break these characters down to their very core, it's not about the action and the special effects and the cool costumes and stuff like that. It's really about human stories, about those things that drive us all, and no greater scene kind of signified that or let you know that this was going to be a very serious film than the very first scene where we see Eric Lenscher in an internment camp and see his parents about to get walked off to the gas chamber. I mean, that right there is probably the most serious and weird opening of a comic book film ever. And it was right there letting you know, hey, this is going to be deep stuff. And because of this X-Men film, not only did it spawn numerous X-Men films and Wolverine films and Deadpool films beyond that, but it, again, took Hollywood people saying, hey, these films can be done a certain way to where they can not also be entertaining, but also be a little bit deeper meaning to where kids and adults can enjoy them. And I guarantee, if it wasn't for this film, we would not have gotten Iron Man, the Avengers, Thor, the MCU, all that stuff. We might not have gotten, the DCEU and all these other comic book films, which there have been some, duds along the way. Unfortunately, with X-Men and Fox, along the way you got films like, the Fantastic Four films and Daredevil and Punisher and Elektra. But again, all of it leading the way to some of the greatest films we've gotten so far with the MCU and The Dark Knight and even Logan, which falls in the X-Men category. I'm just saying this film was a trailblazer to really modern blockbusters in this age. So we really have to give it its credit, and that's what I want to do. I want to talk about the film a little bit, of course, from an X-Men fan standpoint mainly, and why I enjoy this film. But it's not even my favorite X-Men film, but you got to give it its credit. Now, just give you a brief history on kind of my X-Men experience, so to speak. I've been reading X-Men since I was a kid. The earliest thing I can remember was jumping on to X-Men since Age of Apocalypse, way back in the mid-90s. And of course, I knew who the X-Men were, and I'm pretty sure, I know I have the issue of X-Men #1. I've had several copies of that throughout my life, but I do have a current copy of that, and I remember that. And of course, that's kind of the cornerstone of what they built the X-Men animated series on, which of course I watched on Saturday mornings along with Spider-Man and the Batman animated series to go along with it. But Age of Apocalypse was the one that I remember the jumping on point for me. And really, it's been ever since then I've been reading X-Men comics. Now, there was a brief period around college where I couldn't afford to buy comic books, so I had about a 2 to 3 year break where I didn't collect comic books. But then what happened is I was interested in what was going on, so I used to go to the comic book store and just buy Wizard Magazine. The Wizard Magazine before they had all these internet sites that could tell you the latest news and comic books and comic book movies and stuff like that. There was Wizard Magazine, which, by the way, to this day has a great casting call section back in the day with the X-Men before there was an X-Men movie. Lo and behold, of course, Patrick Stewart was the casting for Charles Xavier. You had the guy from Terminator and from Aliens, I forget his name. He played Kyle Reese in Terminator as Cyclops. They had Nicole Kidman as Jean Grey, Jean-Claude Van Damme as Gambit, and I believe it was Robert De Niro as Wolverine. So I just vividly remember that casting call because, again, I was an X-Men fan and I loved the casting call portions in Wizard Magazine. But of course, eventually I couldn't just read Wizard Magazine. I eventually picked up comics again, transitioned from individual issues, then I went to just trade paperbacks, and then I went digital, which is what I do now. But I've caught up, and again, I feel like I've pretty much stuck with X-Men the whole time. Stuck with Superman a lot of the times too. All the other ones kind of bouncing back and forth, but those are kind of the main two. But X-Men, always been a bigger X-Men fan more than any other superhero book, I believe. And again, I haven't liked it all. I mean, there are a lot of books of X-Men with this new era they're doing that I haven't enjoyed anyway. But, I still check it out, and I still try to keep myself relevant as to what's going on in all the X-Men books, even if I don't enjoy the book. So, okay, X-Men, the movie's coming out, and, as an X-Men fan, I think it's cool. I'm excited about it. And the local paper back in Kokomo, Indiana, had a little survey, and they asked, who's your favorite X-Men character and why? So I wrote in, and I said my favorite character at the time was Iceman. Favorite characters as far as X-Men, I really like Iceman, of course. I know Wolverine's the big popular one. I like Wolverine, but he's nowhere near my favorite, not even my top 5. When I was younger, I really liked Gambit. He was kind of the other cool bad boy in the X-Men team. I collected several mini-series I know that Gambit had. He's had a regular series that never really stuck, but I remember his first mini-series. I collected all 4 issues of that, which I really liked. So I wrote in, told him my favorite X-Men character at the time was Iceman, and it got published in the paper, which I thought was super cool. But because of that, I got 2 tickets to opening day to go see X-Men. I just had to go downtown to the Kokomo Tribune and get my tickets, and I did that. And that day, me and my buddy Kevin Price went in the afternoon showing to go see X-Men. And I'm pretty sure I saw at least once more in the theater at that time, because that's back when I was a teenager and I had time to waste and money to waste. So I saw movies a lot. And I remember liking the movie, but not loving the movie. I think that really the thing that bugged me the most is that when you're a comic book reader, and especially now where you have a lot of movies coming out about, comic book characters to try to boost comic book sales, but publishers like Marvel and DC, where if there's like a Spider-Man movie coming out, they will kind of try to mimic the comic to reflect the movie that's coming out. Like if, Lizard is the main villain in a Spider-Man movie, they'll try to make sure that when the movie comes out, the main villain in a Spider-Man comic at that time is Lizard, so that way you can, go into a comic book shop after seeing this latest Spider-Man movie, pick up a comic book, and hey, that's Spider-Man, that's Lizard, try to get new readers. One attempt I know is after the CW Flash series got big, they changed the color of Iris West's skin tone, and throughout a couple of issues, made her darker and darker. It's super weird, of course, because Candace Patton is her name, that plays, Iris on The Flash, of course, a black female. So they tried to mimic that in the books, and then eventually they switched her back again. No comment on that at all. But with the X-Men comics at that time, they were just about to start Grant Morrison's famous X-Men run. And this was just after they did another Apocalypse storyline where Cyclops had merged with Apocalypse, and eventually he was separated thanks to the help of Cable and Jean Grey, and the X-Men were kind of rebooting at this point, and New X-Men by Grant Morrison was one of the ones they were rebooting with. And then you also had the Uncanny X-Men as well. They were dressed in black leather. Never had they been in black leather before, but because the movie had them in black leather, they switched it to the comics to have black leather again. So if someone could go watch the latest X-Men movie and they jump right in and they see, hey, they match exactly what they wore in the films. And I get why they, had them look different in the movies because, they make a comment about it. Cyclops is like, what would you prefer? Yellow spandex? Kind of poking fun at their colorful costumes. And, this goes back to even Smallville on the WB that had come out, where it was about a young Superman, and their rules were no flights, no tights. They wanted to not people kind of put a bias against the show or this movie just because it was based on a comic book and superhero property. And I think it helped Smallville, and I think it helped X-Men to, change it up just a little bit. However, there are things that were changed that I have a big disagreement on. The biggest thing in the first trilogy was the treatment of Cyclops, who, as an adult, has become my favorite X-Man. And I thought James Marsden was a great casting. I remember when he was cast, I remember him from the teenage film Disturbing Behavior with Katie Holmes. And, I thought, okay, he could play Cyclops. I liked it. And I thought he did a good job as Cyclops. But, of course, he was just kind of that third wheel in the Wolverine Jean Grey triangle, and I really never felt like he got his due in any of the X-Men films. Even when Ty Sheridan was playing him in the prequel films, I still don't feel like it was what Cyclops deserved, given the fact that he is really the main X-Men in my eyes. And I think if you talk to a lot of X-Men fans, he is the X-Men. But yeah, as far as casting goes, of course, Patrick Stewart was great. Ian McKellen was great. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, it's the funniest thing, because really this is where Hugh Jackman broke out, right? This is how he got his start. He wasn't even supposed to play the character. Actor Dougray Scott, who best known today, probably he plays the dad in Batwoman, he was set to play Hugh Jackman, but there was a scheduling conflict. So instead of being an X-Men, he ended up being in Mission Impossible 2 with Tom Cruise because he thought that was a safer bet. Tom Cruise, action movie, established film versus this comic book film with Bryan Singer. Well, we all know what happened there. And, of course, people complained Hugh Jackman was 6'1", 6'2", I think is what he is. And Wolverine's only supposed to be like 5'3" or 5'4". So there are people that complained about that. But to be honest, Jackman did such a great job. I really didn't care. And I think now we're at the point where, we're talking about recasting Wolverine. And I think it's such an impossible casting job. And Hugh Jackman did such a great part throughout the franchise of defining that character and owning that character that, we can't really imagine anyone else but him playing Wolverine. And it'll be interesting to see. I know someone else will do it. And I'm sure, if not, the next person or the person after that will do a fine job. But Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, I think we can never really undersell just how great he was in that role. Where the film kind of lost me a little bit was with the female casting. While Halle Berry at that time was getting to be a known name, I think she could have done a fine job as Storm. But again, the X-Men films, and especially this one too, were so set around Wolverine and Xavier and Magneto. Everyone else took a back seat, much like Cyclops and Storm. And I know in X3, the only way they could get Halle Berry to come back is she played a more dominant role. But again, her character is pretty, useless, I think, in this film franchise. Even, of course, going to the prequels with Alexandra Shipp, I believe her name was, in X-Men Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix. That's kind of been my big problem with the X-Men franchise, is that it's very centered around Wolverine, Charles, Eric, and Raven. When, these are good characters, but there's so many more great characters you could explore out of, 11, 12 films or whatever? I mean, there's a lot more than just those 4 characters. But the way Halle Berry played that role, or the way she was told to play, of course, she had that fake accent, which eventually died off as the films went on. Kind of the same thing with Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch in the MCU. Her accent that she had in Age of Ultron is pretty much gone for that. But, she could have done better if they would have given her a bigger part, much like I feel the same thing with James Marsden. He could have done more if the script would have called for it. Femke Jensen as Jean Grey, I didn't like one bit, actually, no. X2, maybe she was okay, just because out of the original trilogy, that was my favorite X-Men film. But she didn't strike me as a Jean Grey. I remember when she was cast, the last thing I had seen her in was the newest James Bond film at the time, which was GoldenEye. And she was this Russian bad guy or bad girl. And I'm like, that doesn't exactly scream girl next door, sweet Jean Grey that Wolverine and Cyclops, are fighting over. And, for that, I never saw that casting. Sophie Turner in the prequels, I think, could have, again, done a better job and was a little better at it. Again, given the source material, which what some of these actors were given to work with, and what their characters could have become, could have been much more. I know, I'm speaking as an X-Men fan after reading these comic books and these characters for decades, and realizing what their potential was and what it never lived up to. Going to X-Men Apocalypse, the Horsemen with Psylocke and Archangel and Storm, and these are great characters that have great history, and you can do a lot with them. And I don't think they spoke more than 5 words the entire film, which just disappointed me. But again, this film, it was a stepping stone to which all other comic book films got from it. I mean, if you look at 2 years later, you got Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. It was a little goofy, of course, too, but again, it was a sign that people were looking for these characters to step up, be a little more serious, be a little more fun too, if it called for it. But people were ready for it, and that's really what happened. Was I think X-Men was that first step, and really it was Spider-Man a couple years later that really blew open the doors. So you got to give credit to that first stepping stone in my eyes. And even speaking just from the Fox X-Men franchise, I mean, X2 was in my eyes better than X1, and then X3 was blah. But all the other films that have come from it, such as Logan and the Wolverine, and my favorite X-Men film, X-Men Days of Future Past, even Deadpool, again, all started with that first X-Men film that, for its time, I think was really well done. And you can say what you will about Bryan Singer. I don't want to get into that debate, but my favorite X-Men films, not Wolverine or Deadpool films, have been the ones that he has done. X-Men, X2, Days of Future Past, X-Men Apocalypse. Out of the 6 films, those are the 4 that I enjoy the most comparatively. I would say 7 films, but I just like to think that X-Men Dark Phoenix just didn't exist at all, and just like to think of it as a X-Men trilogy and then a prequel trilogy. And overall, 2 out of each of those trilogies I enjoyed, so I'll give them kudos on that. And I sat down last week too on the anniversary, July 14th, and actually watched X-Men again. And again, I haven't, not a huge fan of it. I'm not even sure this film is in my top 50 comic book films of all time. I'd have to go back through my list. I think it is, but I'm not 100% sure. But given when it came out, what it was up against, I think it really did a really good job. But comparatively, again, to films of today, Logan, The Dark Knight, Captain America, Winter Soldier, Infinity War, even some of the series that we have now, such as like Watchmen or The Boys, really, I think you got to go back to that original X-Men film. And again, I like to give Blade some credit too, but starting this era that we live in, the golden age of comic book films, and it's where it's at. It's where it all started in my eyes. So I think celebrating this film on its 20-year anniversary is just the right thing to do for a fan of the comic book film genre, of a superhero film genre. As an X-Men fan, I like it. I like it. I got to give it that credit, and I think everyone should. Anyone who doesn't, I don't think understand the status of what comic book films were like or TV shows were like before it. All right, guys. Well, that is it for me today. Time for you to fire back on the social media groups and Gmail account. Let me know what you think about the original X-Men film, 20th anniversary. Did you like it? Do you like it? What do you think? What are some of your casting choices? Like I said, I was a big fan of Jean Grey as from Famke Janssen, or Halle Berry. I think could have done better as Storm. What would you have changed? What do you think about the X-Men franchise as a whole? What are some of your favorite X-Men films? And do you believe as I do that it's very much that first step in creating the modern dominant comic book franchises that we have today? Some people, of course, might take that as a bad thing. As a comic book fan who's been reading books his whole life, I take it as a good thing, but whatever. Fireback, let me know. Facebook group, Twitter account, Dayspring Discussions @gmail.com. You can find me personally, Slim Dayspring12 on Twitter and Instagram. Now, I think it's this week, guys, is we have the virtual Comic-Con, because this weekend was when San Diego Comic-Con was supposed to take place, right? And now I think they're doing the virtual cons with it. So as news comes out about that, I'll try to talk about that. I'm always active on the social media groups, Facebook, Twitter, so I'm always posting stuff there. It's much easier for me to do that. And also, when I do an episode like this, it's usually something I feel like I have a passion about and I want to say. So I hopefully have some more free time been busy, on my days off lately. I don't think I'm going to have too much going on for the next month or so, or at least a couple weeks, to say the least, until a little beach trip we have planned in August. But hopefully I'll do a couple more episodes. Hopefully there's some good news to talk about. Honestly, guys, I'm dying for some good stuff. I know The Boys new season is coming. Other stuff is on the horizon, I hope. And I hope you guys are out there being safe, being smart. And let's get through this, guys, because honestly, I want to go back to the goddamn movies, okay? I want to see Tenet. I want to see Black Widow. I want to see Mulan. I want to go back to the movies. And that does not happen while people are out there being stupid, okay? Put your goddamn mask on, okay? Stay inside. All that stuff. Please, I'm sorry. I know I'm going off the rails here, but god damn it. I want to go to the movies. And the sooner you people be smart about it, the sooner we can go back, okay? All right. I'm off my soapbox now, guys. Fire back and yell at me for that too, okay? That's it. Go out, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, and until next time, may the force be with us all.